Well, as we've been reporting for much of the day, today has marked the second day of conversations at the ANC's National General Council. It is the fifth one that is underway in Boksburg.
And of course, lots of discussion, including around the National Democratic Revolution, which is our question to you tonight, asking you, what do you understand about this particular concept?
We're going to take your thoughts later in the program. In fact, Thulasizwe Simelane is our man on the ground, SABC News anchor, speaking to various people in the last while, Thulasizwe, including the Electricity Minister, NEC member Kgosientsho Ramokgopa. But there's also going to be focus at some point on the Freedom Charter as well.
Without a doubt, Tembegile and Bongiwe, good evening to the both of you. And we are here to ensure that the National Democratic Revolution, or perhaps the makings of it and the envisioning and thinking around how to implement it, will be televised. Good evening. Welcome to day 2 of the National General Council of the ANC. And as my colleagues in studio have said, much of the focus being on the theoretical and ideological framing and perhaps envisioning of what it is that the ANC is trying to do with everything that is happening, the various areas of governance, the various subcommittees of the ANC, and in particular this evening, the Freedom Charter taking center stage. We are on standby for an occasion, a dinner that marks the 70th anniversary of the Freedom Charter, and as and when that takes place, we will bring it to you live, including an address by the ANC President that will mark the 70th anniversary of the Freedom Charter. You can only imagine that in the closed commissions, there has been significant amount of reflection about how far the ANC has gone from the lofty goals and implementing the lofty goals of the Freedom Charter. The document itself was a product of its time, but also far-reaching in terms of how it envisioned a new society. Let's unpack some of what has transpired in the last few hours. I'm joined by political analysts Dr. Levi Ndou and Sandile Swana. Good evening to the both of you, and thank you for your time. I don't know to what extent you've had this conversation. Let me start with you, Sandile, about the focus on the National Democratic Revolution and the Freedom Charter. In a way, they're not divorced from each other, are they, in terms of the goals, the end state that you are seeking to achieve?
No, I don't think you can divorce them. You know, in the initial stages, the National Democratic Revolution, in its simplest form, you would say that the African people, or the black majority, is oppressed, and you need to liberate them. The Freedom Charter then says what would be the detail or the concrete manifestation of that freedom. So, for instance, there shall be security and comfort. Shanties and shacks will be demolished, and we will have proper houses. So the Freedom Charter, to me, has got a concrete component. But in terms of the stages of revolution, the NDR explains the stages that you have to go through to get there. But the biggest thing was that our people had been excluded from the franchise. They'd been excluded from participating in the governance of the country, the rule of the people, by the people, for the people. Yeah. So to me, that is the NDR.
Levi Ndou, weigh in on this. Is the consensus that we are in a national democratic revolution, in a revolution at all, given that much of the change that has occurred, objectively speaking, has not been revolutionary, but rather evolutionary? It has been painstaking work, chipping away at some of the vestiges of the inequality, but in some instances actually regressing as far as some of these factors are concerned. So in the way that the ANC is centering a revolution, national democratic being the qualifier, is there consensus that we are in a revolution of sorts?
I don't think we are in a consensus. Discussions indeed are still going on, and there is that appreciation of what we're going through and what we envisage to see in the future. My view is that when you revolutionize it, you actually create a sense of emergency to say that at a particular period of time, and I'm leaving everything else, but I want to focus on the specific issues. And what would be the expectation of many people would be that they would want to see specific focus on issues that are identified in the Freedom Charter being given the highest priority, so that in the nearest future, we shouldn't be hearing these issues that are identified in the Freedom Charter as issues that are a challenge to us. We should therefore be able to move forward. But the unfortunate part is that there are structural challenges that we face as society, and indeed, those are the issues that we still grapple with, and indeed the ANC is grappling with. If you listen to the leadership of the ANC talking about what would please them, they would only talk about the progress that has been made. But there are specific issues that appears to be permanently problematic to deal with, and my view is that you need a particular approach or a new approach to be able to deal
So
with
as you,
those issues.
excuse me, as you talk about, pardon me, I did have a bit of a cough, so I've just recovered. As you talk about a particular approach, to the both of you, why this message and why now? The NDR has been there all along, but the way that it's being foregrounded, why now? Why is this a message for now when the ANC is seeking a new particular way of doing things and seeking attractiveness to at least 4 million new voters?
I think it would be fair to say that for some time, probably the past 16 years, the ANC lost the clarity of message. They could have now gone to an advertising agency or wherever they could have gone to go and look for a new message. That has got its own risks. The message that they think they know or have mastered over time is this one of the National Democratic Revolution. Let me then add that if you read the actual Freedom Charter without prejudice, and even the NDR without prejudice, because first of all, when we're talking about the revolution in South Africa, we're not talking about the violent overthrow of any government. I don't want people to think that we're talking about any violence.
That's an important point to make, demystify.
Let's demystify that part. So the way that Levi is explaining this, that actually even yourself, that actually we're talking about change. So the change that happened in China or in Singapore and such places, there was no bloodshed and all such things, but there was a very serious change. So that's the first thing. So the ANC has been criticized, even by the DA, especially Helen Z, that they've got no ideology. That statement has been made. And a lot of the caliber of cadres have never been able to articulate a clear message to the masses. And you can never mobilize the masses, let alone 4 million people, without a clear message. So to me, they are trying to have a message. That's the shortest answer I can give.
Yeah. Your take, Levi?
What, in my view, should happen is that the ANC is in a much better position in the sense that they've been able to develop documents that talks to what is supposed to happen. The NDR does acknowledge where we are and where we're supposed to be. And the revolution, in my view, that has to be taken or undertaken is supposed to create an environment of agency to say, if indeed we want to focus on ensuring that we improve education, let us ensure that all the necessary resources are put in place to ensure that we improve on education.
The doors of learning and culture shall be open.
If you say so, make sure that you capacitate schools, capacitate universities and colleges, so that you should be able to say, this is what we said in the Freedom Charter, and indeed it is happening. Students are saying we need quality education. We need proper funding. That is the emergency that should be created by government.
But is this message going to be sustained? Because the cynic will say, It's always been there. The Freedom Charter has been there 70 years, but it wasn't amplified like it is now. How sure are we that it will be sustained, leading to the next policy conference that says, back to basics? We've tried having different messages, but our message, what endeared us initially with the South African people, was that we were the people of the Freedom Charter. We were the people with a vision of a national democratic society where we wanted to take you through this revolutionary journey. How sure are we that it will be sustained in a year when so much will happen, in 2 years when so much will happen politically, even inside the ANC?
So, first of all, I think that for the sake of the viewers at home, I would like to accept and underline the statement that is being made by Levi here, that first of all, you need agency, focused agency. Now, the report by Mbalula was 294 pages.
Yes.
So this is the type of comrade who says we're focusing on everything. When you focus on everything, you're focusing on nothing. And there can be no agency. So that was already a sign that the comrades have not refined their thinking. So we should be coming up here with 3 or 4 priorities. If it's education, security, and something else, whatever it is.
The economy.
The economy, for example, that these are the only things that were agenda, but we're aware that there are other areas. But in this period, before the next national election, we want these things to go over. We want to take this over the line. So you cannot perform, you cannot be trusted if you have 294 pages. So they need to, by the time they finish this conference, they needed to have gotten rid of those 294 pages to say these are the 3 things we're going to be urgent about and we're going to be focused. Then people can start to have a measure of confidence that these guys are probably starting to be serious.
But wasn't that work important, Dr. Levindo, of those 294 pages to say, while we're pursuing this NDR and the end goal of a national democratic society, these are the realities that we are grappling with. Lay it bare and make incisions into it as to this vehicle, this body that's meant to take us there is ailing, is very, very sick. And these are the reasons why the body is sick.
The NGC, it's a moment of reflection. It's a moment in which the party has to assess its performance after the national conference and indeed make an honest assessment of the dynamics within the party. There are things that the party should not avoid doing, which is to avoid speaking the truth about the activities that are happening within the party. The NGC is coming in at a time when the ANC has lost its majority at national level. So when they reflect, they should therefore also be able to make sure that they activate things that made them not to get the majority, or things that made them to lose the majority. And whether we like it or not, these delegates that are seated here are aware that they could have been part of the state of the organization. When we say the ANC is not doing well, the ANC is declining. It is the people that are here. And it is up to them to make sure that things change for the better. And I think that is why you had in some of the discussions here in the NGC, they talk about the development of a new cadre. Someone who must therefore be able to go out and make a difference. But there should be a proper framework on how do they move out of the conference. And that is why I would agree with Sandile that you don't need to have a very long activities that you are supposed to deal with. You need to have specific few things that you need to focus on as a party that will be able to make your life easier and better as they move towards one policy conference that is coming soon, as they move towards the local government elections, and indeed as they move towards the elective conference in 2027.
And importantly, the general elections that will then soon, immediately after that, follow within 2 years. Let's talk about one of the themes that has dominated today, at least in terms of the unofficial agenda, the discontent around the alliance relationships. You saw it yesterday on opening day, and Madala Masuku, representing the SACP, as they spoke about the SACP contesting elections, and now the signals that are being picked up at the moment. Talk to many of the delegates saying, actually, we need to come out with a decision that says this idea of dual membership, ANC, SACP, may not be sustainable going forward, and also just going forward, possibly cutting all ties if the SACP continues on the track that they are on. Does that matter at this point, at this NGC, or is it one of those features that we would look back 7 years from now and remember that, oh, it was a feature of the NGC in 2025, but in the end, it didn't matter much about the state of the ANC?
The other thing that comes to my mind that we need to be able to help the viewer at home with is that there are two discussions that are happening here. One discussion is about the political party, the ANC. The other one is about the state. And it's easy to confuse these two things when you are talking. So this topic you are raising has been how the ANC, from perhaps the 40s, mid-50s, started to understand itself and the vehicles that it must use to achieve success in this so-called, let's call it the National Democratic Revolution and the building of this democratic society. The alliance with the communists, which at some point had to be hidden in certain quarters. When you go to certain historians, they tell you that even Mandela was actually a member of this Communist Party. And the armed struggle, the communists were actually instrumental in orchestrating this armed struggle and so on. So there were certain vehicles and certain configurations of the very struggle. The struggle, even the Freedom Charter, was a Congress of the people. It was not a Congress of the ANC. So now there are problems that arise, and I'll just point out one. I don't think we should make take it light that in this period, the SACP and COSATU have not been treated fairly by the ANC. The sins of incumbency, where the ANC became more and more arrogant and bullying during this post-1990 era. Slovo was a major player up to a point, and then after that they started sidelining and shafting the SACP. So something has gone wrong, but it means that there is a need to understand the tools of struggle. And let me say this last point. The period that we're in right now is a period where money politics are key. And these are politics that are controlled by big business and big money. And the SACP needs to say something about that, whether it is joining in on the politics of money or it is actually saying we have a different type of politics.
All right, that's an interesting one. I don't know, Dr. Ndo, do you want to weigh in on that? Because part of the other themes that I thought we would tease out has to do with what the president then says in his speech, which we expect in the coming, within the coming minutes, within this hour at least. It does seem to be, I don't know, I'm not sure if it has started actually, the dinner to mark the 70th anniversary of the Freedom Charter. What does he say to reconcile all of these ructions, the issues that arose yesterday, the tripartite relationship? He will have gotten a sense of the mood and tone and demeanor of the delegates in relation to all these issues, the tripartite alliance, the SACP continued relationship, but also remembering that the SACP sees the National Democratic Revolution as the shortest path to socialism. Their interest is, let's take you to socialism, but we accept that we can't get there directly. Let's go via the NDR to get us there.
When the SACP took a decision to contest elections, for me, that decision would mean that those who have got dual membership have to make a choice. And I think they've already made that choice. It's either they are ANC or SACP. But what I think is very important is that there are things that the ANC cannot control, because the SACP and COSATU are not the leagues of the ANC.
Yeah.
They are independent organizations that could still take decisions independent of the ANC.
That forged an alliance with the ANC.
So the ANC still has to go and try their best to persuade the SACP, which appears to have already taken its decision. And my view is that as we're moving towards the local government elections, where the SACP is very clear about contesting independently, the ANC should start activating themselves, knowing that they're heading towards these elections without the SACP. What might happen is that it's either they'll continue with the alliance beyond the elections and have easily formed coalitions whilst they are in the different structures of government, or it's also a moment for the SACP to test their constituencies, to test their popularity among South Africans. Then they might still come back and say, we have been able to make it outside the ANC, or we failed. But my view is that the voice of the left within the alliance appears to have been suppressed. And I think those are some of the issues that could have frustrated the SACP in them taking a decision to go independent.
I'm hearing a bit of singing, so it must be coming from the possibly just outside the plenary venue, so that perhaps signals that we are close to the point where that dinner we are talking about. Sandile, a final word to you. As Dr. Ndou is talking about this, the leanings, left-leaning, etc., the ANC has always been described as a broad church, right? In terms of, you find pockets of almost everything represented, but ultimately called a disciplined force with a leaning towards the left, right? Towards the workers. I'm not getting the framing correctly. Can that still be said in the context where it seems as if the ANC increasingly is becoming more pragmatic in its approach? We will take policies that are pragmatic. It's a point that the SACP has made recently around the issue of structural reforms, the pipeline industries, to say that's not pursuing the national democratic revolution as we understand it. The ideological parting of ways.
Yeah, I think that there are a number of scholars and economists that have actually demonstrated that, for instance, state ownership in the US and even the creation of the IT industry in the US was actually the creation of the state, including the so-called independent private companies, continue to be supported by the state. So you need to be very careful of creating an idea that there are countries such as the USA versus China, where it's a capitalist country or a communist country. Countries today are pragmatic, and countries today are interventionist. And the SACP theory says you go through capitalism. So everybody accepts that there's going to be capitalism. And China has got some of the best capitalists.
All right. Thank you. Let's leave it there simply because of time. But it does feel like it's a conversation we'll have to pick up on at some point. So there you have it. Just teasing out some of the issues that delegates here have had the whole day to really discuss, as they were discussing the state of the NDR and what they call the balance of forces, where they weigh in everything, the state of the organization, the state of the branches, provinces, regions, as they interact and interface with the many, many issues that they're dealing with here at home, on the African continent, and around the world.